11 Night Raid. Author, Wild Wolverine. The plane was bumping forward in the wind. Lin Huaisheng glanced at an airspeed indicator on the flight instrument from behind. The speed was only a pitiful 270 km per hour, that is to say, it would take at least an hour to reach the destination Gilgit Airport. In the midst of boredom, Lin Huaisheng suddenly remembered the Air Force colonel he met at the end of the base runway a few days ago. He saw that the liaison plane pilot in the front row had Squadron 41 written on the armband. Lin Huaisheng couldn't remember which squadron Colonel Sammy belonged to. He only remembered that there was a black spider painted on his armband. The Pakistan Air Force is very small. So Lin Huaisheng asked the pilot in the front seat. The pilot laughed happily when he heard the name Mohammed Sami, and the 4 Cessna planes started to shake. He said, "Old Sami, a legend, in Pakistan, even the army knew the name Muhammad al-Samad, and he bet Captain Salim did." This answer shocked Lin Huaisheng, so he turned to the expressionless Captain Salim. "He's right, Colonel Sami doesn't know anything," said the captain. "He's an ace pilot." "Of course, but the colonel is famous for another thing." "Let's hear it." Lin Huaisheng sounded more and more curiously. In 1988, Sami shot down a Soviet MiG fighter jet on the Afghan border. We detained the pilot after parachuting. No one could have guessed at the time that this pilot was the current president of the Russian Federation. This is true. Lin Huaisheng couldn't believe his ears. He only knew that the current Russian president could fly a fighter jet, but he didn't expect that he was caught alive. An hour later, the plane finally staggered to Gilgit Airport. Lin Huaisheng paid special attention to the end of the airport. The Xiaolong fighter was no longer there. Colonel Sami had already flown back to the Kalmar base and had already caught up with a new mission. In view of the unscrupulous infiltration of Indian ground forces, the Air Force staff has formulated a new round of strike plans, targeting a newly discovered Indian Army stronghold in the Kargil Mountains. Over the past few days, an Indian Army has secretly built a valley on the west side of the line of control heliport, and has begun to hoard supplies around, and set about occupying this place for a long time. According to the plan of the staff, the Pakistani Air Force will confuse the Indian Air Force at midnight with a series of transitions to lure them into the air, so that the short-legged Indian front-line fighters can run out of fuel in their exhaustion. The first round of ground attack will be completed by the F-16A of the 9th Squadron. Colonel Sami's 26th Squadron's Raiden aircraft, due to the lack of night attack pods and precision-guided weapons, will serve as cover and substitute for the attack team, so that his aircraft having to carry 4 air-to-air missiles and 2 bombs makes the range seem tight. But the colonel didn't care about this. He felt that it was safer to work at night, because the Su-30 fighters he was most worried about had never approached the combat zone at night. In the early hours of the morning, the feigning planes began to return, and the colonel's number 101 fighter jet and another wingman quietly slipped off the runway and headed into the dark night sky. Under the cover of night, the 2-plane formation flew eastwards quietly. "Griffin, tell me your location." Colonel Sami sat in the cabin, calling the first attack team from other airports on the communication channel continuously, waiting for them to rendezvous, but did not hear a definite echo. The sound coming out was very loud, and many unrelated pilots could be heard talking. These were communications from the cover team, most of whom were in contact with the ground to prepare for landing. "Griffin, the Black Spider is in the confluence area, where are you?" There was still no response, so the colonel was a little anxious, because the first wave of attack missions must be carried out by 2 F-16A of the 9th, Griffin, Squadron to accomplish, as only their day and night targeting pods can guide laser-guided paving stone bombs. And his own Thunderbolt fighter can only carry out an ordinary bomb attack in a low-altitude flight after dawn. "Griffin hasn't shown up yet," said the wingman. "Black Spider, this is the Griffin squad, we are behind you." "Griffin, hurry up, we must get there before dawn." "Is that squadron leader you?" The voice on the radio was somewhat familiar. It seems to be the voice of the old subordinate Uhak, Colonel Sammy used to stay in the 9th Squadron when he was young. "You're late." "Aerial refueling delay," said Major Uhak. "Do you still need to refuel? Are you prepared?" An unknown voice on the radio said, "Attention to the Panther formation, found that there is a ground search radar turned on nearby, please mark the location." The unknown voice continued, "Cobra number 2, check the following and rear, watch out for SAM-7 missiles in the mountains." The calls were clearly not addressed to Sammy and Uhak, but rather the AWACS alerting other nearby aircraft. After a series of dazzling maneuvers, 4 planes approached the Indian Army stronghold that crossed the border at a low altitude. The Indian Army has used this helicopter takeoff and landing point to transport a large amount of equipment to the Pakistani side, and not long ago, a special team was sent to 5 kilometers deep into the border. The wreckage of a Jaguar was blown up. All units in the theater. Adam Bull has 2 MiG-29s in the air, which may be close to the border. The early warning aircraft continued. It sounded that the threat was still far away, but Colonel Sammy did not dare to take it lightly. He was well aware of the current Indian Air Force, more aggressive than ever, especially those Su-30 fighters with unparalleled performance. Altitude down to 1,200 meters. Use a radio altimeter, Sammy said. Understood. The wingman responded. We expect to attack at dawn. Then you attack again, Uka said. I remember telling you that I hate flying east after dawn. If enemy planes take off, they will take the direction of the sun, Sammy said. Don't worry, when you drop bombs, I will protect you from above. Uka said. His plane did not carry bombs and served as the defense mission of the entire formation.